Hello, welcome to the Daily Briefing. We continue what can only be described as an action-packed week of just craziness. Mourinho was binned, but just as we were about to get our teeth into that, the whole European Super League thing came up, and not so much unfurled, but exploded. So, couple of bits of sort of gossip, inside information came to light this morning. One was that Mourinho had a conversation with Daniel about how confident he felt for the Carabao Cup final. And unfortunately for the Portuguese, he gave the wrong answer. And he said he wasn't very confident at all, and nor were his coaching staff. And this put Mr. Levy into a bit of a spin, and all I presumed then afterwards was the fact that Daniel went off to his office, got himself into a bit of a funk over things, phoned Joe, went through the numbers, came back and said to Jose, thanks very much. It now emerges from leaked audio from a phone call or WhatsApp call or whatever it will prove to be with Jamie Redknapp, that apart from the Spurs being a bunch of clowns, there was a tiered setup in the contract with Jose, so whereby, dependent upon where Tottenham were in the league or whatever at the time, then this would affect on what the kiss-off, the payoff would be. And the suggestion by Redknapp Jr. is that this came down hugely. I mean, like, everybody was talking about 25, 30 million, but the suggestion here is that it could have been as little as 4 million. And so if you tie together, and it doesn't take much to marry the fury of Levy that his coach hadn't got any belief in the team anymore, and it didn't matter if it was Southampton or Manchester City. There was no good news coming anytime soon, that he'd hit a wall with these guys, that he would have, perhaps in that funk, thought to himself, well, actually, I'm not going to get a better chance than this. Perhaps irrespective of what might or might not happen with the European Super League. So before we come back to the what next for Mourinho, it's worth considering that why are fans so angry? And they've been cheering the removal from office. And I've got to tell you, this to me is just like, it's been online for a long time, and it's led by the woke, who like to deplatform and get rid of people they don't like, because that's all they do. All they do is destroy. They don't create. So they want to tear down monuments. They want to rewrite history. They want to tell you what you can think. They want to be your moral guide. And they're fundamentally not very good people to have in your world. And so this mob are now charging like an angry medieval mob with lit torches. Oh, look, there's another football CEO who wanted to make even more money. Let's get him. Get him on the floor and kick him and beat him up and hit him with flip-flops and end him. Let's end him. And I just find it extraordinary. We went through this a little bit on the previous show, but this was a natural progression. And if you want to have that argument with me or with anybody else that it wasn't a natural progression, then you're nuts. And I haven't seen, and I've looked extensively online, I haven't seen a cogent argument against it being a natural progression. And I remember as a kid and as an adult, and hopefully, well, it won't happen. No, that's the whole point, you see. There, bear with me. As an old man, this isn't going to happen. But I remember as a kid and as an adult coming out the tube, and sometimes you'd feel like, a little bit tired. You'd either been on a train all day, or you'd flown in, or whatever you were doing, but you got out, fresh air, daylight hits you, and you've got this massive thing, the high road, this colossal, vibrant community of people, the businesses, the shoppers, the commuters, the school kids, the everything, and it's so lively. It's not like walking down Commercial Road, for example, and you suddenly on this, you're walking up and you head towards your spiritual home. And every time you made that journey, you'd see something you hadn't seen before, you'd smell something you probably hadn't smelled before, and it was a deeply, I don't know how to describe it, like hairs on the back of the neck, yeah, sure, but it was also quite reinvigorating, because all those memories, and I'm talking about somebody who didn't live particularly locally to the stadium ever. I mean, that would be a lie. But you remembered, and you had all these memories, and you're going to this place, and it was the ceremony of going up the high road, and it's difficult to not emotionally, but just mentally, to try and convey how all those thoughts were sort of bombarding you every time you went to see Spurs, and they demolished it. The spiritual home. They demolished it. So sometimes you'd walk up the road and you go, oh, that supermarket's new, or that bank's new, or oh look, that chicken shop's been shut down again because the cats have been going missing locally or whatever. But they built this monstrosity, this shopping centre, this spaceship, this multi-purpose soul harvesting device, cashless point of sale, this thing. And it's not a leap from what they did. It's not a leap from what they did to a European Super League. And if we're honest with ourselves, I mean, millennials, you give them a fortnight's experience anywhere, and they use phrases like, "oh, back in the day," when they talk about a month ago. But for those of us who are, I was going to say shaving, but for those of us who are of a certain vintage, and I'm not talking about everybody over 50 or 60 or anything crazy like that, but I'm talking, as a grown-up, might have kids, whatever. How many times do you need to see, go and watch us play Fulham away? How many times do you need to see Spurs travel to a field with 3 men and a dog in it in the Europa, hoping that somebody doesn't get injured? And I don't think the sport, the football families, one of these wretched jokes, I don't think anybody would miss that. But being able to see Spurs play Juventus one week and then Real Madrid the next and then Bayern, whoever, that's extraordinary, and the whole thing's awful. You go into this place which was a spiritual home. They demolished it and they built this place which now got all the charm of your average airport. And but at least you go there and you probably will eat something that won't make you poorly afterwards, and you get to watch the very best. And that was the pitch, that you would come to this place, and it was the place to see Champions League football. And maybe it's a bit of a swizz, maybe it's a bit of tomfoolery's gone on in order to create this totally artificial scenario where you get all these big teams and blah, blah, blah. But don't talk to me about greed. Don't talk to me about greed. They knocked the last gaff down. That was how far the greed was flowing through their veins. They demolished it. And so I find the sanctimony of the fans just extraordinary. And if you think there was so much fuss made, and occasionally still is, but of where the money came from for Chelsea and where the money came from for City, and whether it was, morally dubious and, all this sort of thing. But now, this is the straw that's broken the camel's back. I just don't understand it. just don't understand it. And I keep making the point, and hopefully in a couple of days this will wear off and I'll stop making the point. But nobody has made a coherent argument. But what we've had is I believe, these dreadful woke mobs taking online and to the streets, wanting people thrown out of their jobs. And they want, the same people. They're all the same people to me. They're all the same people. I don't like what you think. I don't like what you say. So I'm going to get rid of you. And this is, cleansing's not a very nice word, is it? Excuse me. But what do you call it when they want to do this scorched earth policy? So, there's a director of a football club. Get him out on the street. There's somebody else I don't like. Delete them. Deplatform them. And that's how these people operate. I read a thing from the, it was the Chelsea Supporters Trust, earlier. And all it said was, we can't trust you anymore. Now, of all the things that have gone on with that club, with West Ham, and you know where I'm heading with this, we can't trust you anymore. Now, I give up. I genuinely give up. So, Ryan Nelson enters stage left. I'm not going to be as churlish as to suggest that I've been right and everybody else has been wrong again, and that and so I will cheer when we fail under him. The bookmakers know Spurs are 1-4 to win the Carabao Cup. That means, for those of you who don't understand how betting works, that they own a spaceship, they got in it, they've been to the future, they've seen the game, they've watched City win it, they've come back again, and they've priced the game accordingly. So I wish Ryan well. I can't see him suddenly getting out a tune out of players that have been pretty awful, and some of them have peaked at being mediocre. I just don't see it. There was an interesting article, and it was from the BBC at about the time when it was like there was this sort of there was this uncomfortable mentioning on a few places of the fact that ENIC had been around for 20 years at Spurs. And Jermaine Genius did a little bit in it, and he told this anecdote of him moving to Tottenham, him not quite getting to grips with things, not quite feeling himself, not really feeling that comfortable, bit of navel gazing, and the clouds parted, and out came Daniel and put his arm around him, and he said, look, we spent X amount of money on you, we rate you, we like you, we want this to work, give it some time, you have our absolute confidence. Now, I think as pep talks go, that's fantastic. But moving away from the pep talk and looking at things in a slightly broader picture, what we have here is a man who is frightened of change and is, what can we accuse him of? Being bloody-minded, There's a massive business philosophy going on with everything that Daniel Levy does, and it is weird. But Jermaine Genius was there for ages. And he wasn't a great footballer. Is that a terrible thing to say? I'm thinking Jermaine Genius, Tom Huddleston, Azablood, the three horsemen of the apocalypse that never got anywhere. That did they win anything? Was Genius around for the Carling Cup thing? I'm not sure. But now we have the same chairman in charge. We've been through numerous managers, and we've got Eric Dyer and Harry Winks hanging around forever to no good purpose. And they've definitely not won anything. So the constant, the grave and the constant, is Daniel Levy. However, in the singular instance of this woke mob of we don't like this, it is a modern day version of a witch hunt. I don't agree. I don't agree at all. So anyway, Southampton's up next. That'll be fun. Speak to you soon. Good luck. Keep it on.